Lisa. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me? Can you hear me right?
I can hear you very well. I can see you
Okay.
very well too.
Thank you. What time is it over there, by the way?
It is about 4:37 p.m.
Oh,
So just rounding up with our day.
wow. Well, thank
Yeah.
you for being here today. We appreciate you. We thank you for your time and for participating to our little venture, if I want to put it that way. And without further ado, we want to know a little bit about you. How would you describe yourself? Who is Manyi Anabor?
My name is Manyi Anabor, and I am a mother of three. I am an author, and I'm also a domestic violence advocate and an educator of for child sexual abuse because that's my passion. So that's how I describe myself. So on my day to day, I work as a domestic violence advocate for a UK based charity. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let's talk about how this all started. When you were younger, were you as did you know that you end up doing this? What did you want to become when you were younger? What did you
Hmm.
plan you wanted to be? An actress?
I think when I was younger, I knew I wanted to do a job in which I help people.
Okay.
So, coming from the family that I come from, you're either going to be a lawyer or an engineer or one of those main career jobs. So my thoughts were I was going to be a doctor, but I didn't get the grades for to get into medical school. So I started off my education in Douala. I went to primary school in Douala to a school called PNU.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Our Lady of Lord Secondary School in Bamenda. And from there, that's an all girls school. And then after that, I did my high school in Boya at a school called Baptist High School Boya.
Okay.
Then came to the UK to do my further studies. So yeah, like I said, I tried to get into med school, but it didn't happen. So the next best thing was I studied pharmacology, which I did that as a first degree. And then after that, I studied a master's in biomedical science. And then I did some work experience. So I took some time off really to try to figure out where I would like to go in terms of career based on my passion and based on what I liked. So I did a lot of voluntary work in sexual health and HIV.
Okay.
And so that's when I developed my passion for sexual health and sexual abuse. My passion for sexual abuse had always been there because I'm a victim of sexual abuse, or child sexual abuse. So the passion has always been there to teach other people about it in order to prevent others from going through it.
Mhm.
However, I rediscovered my passion for that when I took a year out to figure out which direction I wanted to go in terms of my career. So when I figured that out, then I returned to university to study a second master's degree. I studied a second master's degree in public health and health promotion, which is directly related um, to domestic abuse, which is where I work now. So yeah, so that's my education in summary.
So where you are now, would you say that any of these schools or any of these schools you attended gave you something that brought you to where you are today? I mean, did you
Yes,
learn something from
I
them?
would.
You,
Yes, I would say so. So the last degree I studied, which was the master's in public health and health promotion, I studied a lot about sexual health and health promotion in all capacities. So, meaning educating people about health, about living healthier lives. Stopping even just as basic as stopping smoking,
okay.
stopping drinking, using drugs. So as simple as basic as that. So it in that course it helped me. It gave me the tools and the knowledge and the information to be able to help other people. So after doing that course, my very first job was in a sexual health clinic. So I worked there as a healthcare assistant to begin with. And as a healthcare assistant, my main role was to assist the doctors and to assist the nurses. So it was a clinic. So we had lots of patients coming in with issues to do with their sexual health. So by working there, I learned about all the sexually transmitted infections, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, HIV, learning a lot more about those infections and how to treat people with them and how to treat people with them. And then in my role in that job, after doing that role for I think a year and a half, I applied for a different role, which was sexual health advising. So I became a sexual health advisor, which did so the main part of the role did not entail me assisting doctors and nurses. I worked on my own
Okay.
in the capacity of giving people advice on how to improve their sexual health. So, in that sexual health advisory role was where I got the ability to work one to one with clients, and in working one to one with clients, it builds your competence in a completely different way. So, I did that for a few years and decided somewhere along the line to focus solely on domestic abuse. So I found a job in domestic abuse solely, and that's where I'm working in now. Yeah.
So in the night, do you get a lot of calls, people coming to you talking about it? Is it like a private line, or do they
Oh,
actually
you
come
mean
to
at the
you?
previous job?
I mean, even where you are now, do you actually interact with people physically, or do they just call like an anonymous line? How does that work?
So the my actual job title is IDVA. It's called IDVA. And IDVA IDVA stands for Independent Domestic Violence Advocate. So an IDVA is the person who serves as an advocate, so an advisor to anyone who is going through domestic abuse. So I work with women and men. I provide them with specialist service. So every case is different, as you can imagine. So the organization I work for, they're UK based. I cannot name them for privacy reasons, but they're UK based, and so they are very well known. So when anyone has experienced domestic abuse, they might call the police, or they might call the National Domestic Violence Helpline, which the number is 0808 247 2000. So it's a well-known number. So if you call any of those numbers, if you call that number, or if you call the police even, or if you go to a hospital, to an accident and emergency ward anywhere in the UK, in London rather, not anywhere in the UK, in London, they would most probably direct you to my organization for domestic abuse support. So the support I give is face to face and also on the phone. So there are many of my clients who I've never met, but I have helped to resolve their issues. So because of the nature of my job, I work on a daily basis with the police. I work on a daily basis with social services. I work with family services. I work with counselors. I work with psychotherapists. I work with mental health services. I work with all of them. So I have, obviously, I would have direct lines to them to speed things up. So if I get a client, I do an assessment with the client, just by speaking to them, find out what their needs are, and usually many of these women and men have never been in those situations before in which they're actually seeking help. So it's brand new to them. It's a brand new position in which they are in terms of getting support from externally from someone who is not known to them. So they are usually not aware of the services or the support that is available, and there's loads of support. So some people need to leave their homes immediately, and they have nowhere to go to. Some people are being abused domestically by their in-laws, and being beaten or being tortured, being even threats to behead them, to kill them, to kill the kids.
Is it
So
white? Are they white people or black people or other ethnicity? ethnicities?
All, all.
Oh my.
All ethnicities. So I have clients of all ethnicities. And so my organization is a crisis intervention organization. So my cases are usually very, very high risk. So I need to act immediately. Get them a place to stay, maybe put them in a refuge, put them in temporary accommodation, put them in a hotel, put them in a B&B for the night or for a few days. So or I need to get the police involved. I need to get a restraining order immediately, or or so it's always urgent. Or I need to arrange for the kids. The kids might be in school at the time when the person has contacted me, and they can't go back home. And if they don't go back home, in some instances, the kids' lives might be at stake. So I have to arrange for the kids to be picked up from school, all secretly, all swiftly, all very quickly, and taken to a location that I've arranged for them to stay in. So it's all very, very fast. You have to be very fast acting, quick thinking, and showing empathy and compassion. And for that reason, that's the main reason why, at my job, we use aliases. We don't use our real names.
Okay.
Because in the past, there have been people who, ex-partners who are the abusers, who have sought out the person, the domestic violence advisor, to hurt them, because they'll blame you and say, you're the one who helped my wife leave the house. You're the one who broke our marriage, whereas you actually didn't do anything. But they'll find someone to blame. And in some cases, if they know that there was an organization like ours which helped them to provide support to the woman to leave, then they would blame you. So for that reason, we use aliases. We don't use our real names at work.
To protect your own family and yourself as well.
Exactly. So when we can, we work by phone. Otherwise, we would work face to face. So if possible, work by phone. Yeah.
So when I think about it, and I'm looking at what you said, you grew up in Cameroon. Did Cameroon give any grounding to the woman that you are today? Did our culture give you something positive that you are using today that you can rely on to be able to act the way you are and to perform your job accordingly?
Yes, I would say so. I think my entire upbringing gave me the ground, made me the person that I am today, in terms of making me able to do this job. So, for instance, the main thing is, I get asked a lot, how are you able to do such a job on a daily basis? Isn't it draining? Because I come in touch with women who are going through the worst case scenarios that you can imagine. So, so I believe that my upbringing it gave me resilience. I'm quite a strong person, mentally especially. So it definitely helps me now in the job that I do, for sure. And just empathy, being compassionate for people, for the people I work, I support, I provide support for. I think just growing up, I don't know if I would say it's the family, just my family environment, just growing up the way that I grew up. Yes, it's definitely helped me. And I think most especially my own personal experience with domestic abuse is what has given me the push and the incentive, and just the passion to do the job that I do, for sure. Yeah.
Talking about your personal experience,
Yes.
I want to speak to the author in you now, because you have 2 books right here. I got them. I read them, but they're all available on Amazon right now. They're pretty affordable. Congratulations, by the way, because it's not easy to put words together and to just print a book. Everybody always talk about, it doesn't mean, no, it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So let's start with this poetry collection, this one, because this is the first that you published. Storm Not Strong Enough. At first, I looked at it and I'm like, what is Manyi even talking about? But then when you start reading it, even the titles alone seems
Mhm.
to be very deep, like you. Well, I'm gonna tell you my favorite personally, the one that I could relate to somehow.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure exactly what was behind it when you wrote
Okay.
it, but
I
I
can
feel
probably explain.
it means in some way, when you say I'm dissociated, for example,
Hmm.
I decided to be strong.
Hmm.
Forgiveness. Give me my flowers so I can smell them while I'm alive.
Hmm.
Don't need your yes.
Hmm.
My worth. Those ones are my favorite.
Okay.
Just by their title, before you even go, because I was attracted first of all by the title, and then I just started reading them. And from my personal experience, it spoke to me because something like I decided to be strong.
Hmm.
It's a call. It means something is not right, but you
Right.
go over it. You
Hmm.
decide to overcome it, to do something about it. So I want us to start with this. What prompted you to write all this? It's full of emotion. It talks about motherhood. It talks about downtime. It talks about self-esteem. It talks about love for yourself, love for
Hmm.
others, forgiveness. That's a lot of emotions, to be honest. A
Yeah.
whole lot of
Yeah.
emotions.
For sure.
So, did you have all that in you? What prompted you to just write something like that? What storm did you have to go through? Because clearly
So,
there was a storm somewhere.
yes, as the title implies, Storm
Mhm.
Not Strong Enough. That's a very good question. So from the age of 8 until I was 11 years old, I was sexually abused. I was raped by a boy who worked in my parents' household, in our household, because I lived there, obviously. So I actually started writing these poems at that time. So I lived in a household where things were kind of shoved under the rug. Things were not spoken about, things like this, that is. So at the time when I started being sexually abused from the age of 8, I didn't know obviously what was going on. It did not start immediately. There was a whole grooming process that took place. So the grooming simply means, when whatever a sexual abuser does in order to prevent the actual abuse of the child going out. So without to prevent anyone from finding out that he's what he's doing or what she is doing.
Preparing your victim, basically, and
That's it.
preparing your environment.
Exactly, preparing the environment, preparing the victim for it. So that's usually what happens in grooming with child sexual abuse, because and it's mainly because the abuser knows that it is wrong, first of all, and secondly because the abuser in 93% of the cases knows the child and the child knows the abuser. So it will be even more of a catastrophe for it to come out, for everybody to find out about it. So there's usually that grooming process in which the abuser does quite a few things, a number of things over a long period of time, usually to make sure that no matter what, they are 100% sure in their head, certain that when they finally abuse this child, nobody will find out. So for me, it took a long time. It took actually not that long. It was a few months, if coming to think of it. And the reason why, even though I was 8 years old at the time and I still remember, is because I was documenting it, I was writing it down. And the reason why I was writing it down, I was just writing my thoughts. I wasn't writing because I felt like I want to be a poet in future. The reason why I turned to writing was I think I've always liked to write. I don't know if I before 8 years old I liked writing. I have no idea. All I remember is I turned to writing because I used to, when there were some things that happened during the grooming stages. So I'll give you an example. There was once when, as you know, he's the houseboy. So there was once when he asked me, Manyi, do you know what pads are? Sanitary towels. And I knew what pads were. But I told him no. I said yes, I knew them. I knew what they were. But he asked me if I knew what they were used for, and I said no. And he said, "Oh." because he said he will teach me what they're used for and what they're about, but I just have to not tell anybody. So he asked me another occasion if I was ready for him to teach me what they were about, and I said, oh, no, 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 I know what they are because I've seen my mom use them. And he said, oh, where did she use them? How did she use them? And I felt embarrassed to say how I'd seen my mom use them because it was in her underwear. So I lied and I said, no, I don't remember. And he said, anyway, I'll tell you later, but don't tell your mom we talked about this. So on that occasion, I told my mom. This was early days. He had not started touching me or anything. I told my mom, and I know she did say something to him. She went and told him something. However, the issue is, I told her when I said he asked me what pads were, what she asked me was, and what did you say? The way she said, and what did you say? It was like, and what did you say? Like she's upset with me. So I'm 8 years old. I'm scared that she's angry with me. What have I done wrong?
Your mentor by then?
I hadn't.
So okay.
So I actually had no idea why people used pads. I actually did not know. I know I'd seen her use them, and she had even sent me to the store to buy them for her before. Didn't really know what they were, but the fact that she used them in her underwear made me think, okay, I don't think I should be talking about this to anybody.
Mhm.
So when I told her, she responded to me by saying, "And what did you say?" And so I retreated, thinking, "Oh gosh, now I've done something wrong." And so I know she spoke to him because that same night, she he came and pulled me by the ear, pulled me behind the house where no one was sitting, no one was there, and he pulled me by the ear and said, "Why did you go and talk to your mother about this?" And he slapped me. He slapped me with like a fist, so it really hurt right here. And I cried, and he pressed my cheek with a cold towel and said, "Look at what you made me do. You made me slap you now. Whenever I talk to you about things, don't go and tell your mom because she will not understand. She will not understand that you're my friend and we're just talking. So don't tell her." So it's things like that. He did that. It's indirect. So if anyone looked at it, they would say, "Oh well, he didn't sexually abuse her. He didn't do anything to me. He just asked her a question." It might look innocent to some people, but that is an example of what some abusers do in order to make their way in. They're just stepping their little toe in, and then they progress and make it turn into something else, which is exactly what he did.
So when we think about back home we have helpers. Okay, it could be a family members, it could be a stranger working as a nanny, a cook. We have that support system anyway back home, and we tend to rely on them a lot, especially if you have working class parents.
Mm-hmm.
They will go to work in the morning, you stay home, you go to school. As soon as you're back from school, you'll be home with somebody else. Your parents usually are there in the morning, and then they come in the evening. Or sometimes if they're home, you'll be surprised that they still have that help and they still don't spend as much time with
Right.
your parent. Not that they're neglecting them, but they just spend the little that they can because they also have to rest or think about other things or handle even other family businesses because
Exactly.
I feel like our families are always kind of like helping. That's the African culture. You have cousins, siblings, this. So if you have a little bit to share, the list is long. So they're so busy handling everybody else, and then when it's time for themselves, sleep a little bit because they need to rest.
Yes.
And then their children need to understand that they are resting. When it happened to you, that brings me to this. Basically, both books are linked. This one, I consider your openness, as in it had to come out. Let me just pour it all out. And this came to seal everything by telling the actual story. I never managed to finish this. I'm sorry, I tried, but I just can't. It brings all kind of emotions in me between anger, disgust. I don't know what I just want to know who the is well lives. Let me just meet him so that we can deal with that issue. It's so sad.
Yes, it is.
In our own community back home, you mentioned pads. There are conversations that we don't have. we don't talk about a lot of things, and this is my personal experience. I have, I think I can say without being too forward that I have an open family. I
Mhm.
to sit in the living room and just talk about different things, and then
Mhm.
people will kiss. While people will kiss on movies, for example, my father would be like, "Ooh, look at this naughty man," while we will be like, "Ooh, maybe we need to exit."
Right.
My mother will pass by. She say, "Hey, you're watching the TV, eh? You watch people kissing. You want to start kissing?" No, 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 no. We were like, "Hey,
Mhm.
let's just
Mhm.
stop here."
So, mhm.
Other families, even some of my cousin and people I know, you can't
Mhm.
even see that people talking like that. They'll just
Mhm.
be like, "Hey, I cannot sit and watch TV with my dad."
Mhm.
So there's this respect that
Mhm.
sometimes is overly given, if you ask me. How can a girl be subjected to that in her own house for years and come out of it and make it true? I mean, do you get what does it do to you? Like, how do you
Oh.
feel? Because to me, I'm like, you said you started writing,
Mhm.
but
Yes.
maybe you did not feel like talking. Did you feel
Mhm.
ashamed? Did you feel,
Exactly. So yes, I actually didn't finish that point. My bad. So because I felt like I had been reporting the little things that had been the little conversations, and I, as a child, did not feel like anything was being done. As kids, if the thing keeps happening, if the conversations keep happening, and then you report, and then the houseboy comes again and pulls your ear and slaps you, then at some point you're going to stop talking, you're
mm,
going to stop reporting. So I stopped reporting and I started writing. So, but also I would write not just, Uncle George. His name was George, and we called him Uncle out of respect. I would not write in it wasn't even a diary. Any papers I found, I wrote on. So I would write. I would not write Uncle George slapped me today. Uncle George. No, I was, for some reason at that age, I was smart enough to try to conceal the fact that Uncle George was beating me or doing whatever he was doing to me. So I referred to him in my writings as a cat, and I was the mouse. And so that's how I wrote everything. And I still wrote it very cryptically. If you read it, you would not know what the hell I was talking about. And I did it in that way because I was scared that if someone saw it, they would be upset with me. They would be angry at me for doing wrong. So that's how my poetry book came about, obviously, because I was scared. So I wrote it in that way. Then, as I became an adult, then I decided to write even more, more descriptively. But the emotions were always there, and I decided to put them on paper. And I believe that by writing them down, by writing out my emotions, it helped me get the hurt and the pain out of my heart a little bit, because I carried on writing and writing and writing. I have tons and tons of writings. Even when I was at university, so in my teens, 18, 19, 20, early 20s, I was not good at verbally expressing hurt or pain. If I was hurt by a situation, if I was hurt by a friend, I would write it down to myself. If I was very close to the friend, I would write it in an email and send to them. And it would be a long email about how the person hurt me, because I was just good at writing loads. I would write loads of words. So, but yeah, so that's how come the poems came about, because it was all the emotion coming out. And then when I became a mom as well, the joy of being a mom and the struggles while I was a mom, I wrote all that in the form of the poems. And that's how the poetry collection, the poetry book came about.
so was it
um,
the you were opening on this and this poetry, or did you like from when it happened, though it happened through some years, when did you first open up, or did you just conceal it in you up to that point where you started writing your poetry book to publish it, or did you ever
No.
to publish?
So the poetry book was not the first time. When I went to Our Lady of Lord Secondary School, so to college, I went to boarding school at the age of 11 when the abuse stopped. I went straight into boarding school. I was so happy to be there because I was in boarding school far away from home. I didn't like being in that household. It brought back so many memories. There's no way in the house, there's no room in the house in which I was not raped. every single room, every bathroom, every the kitchen, everywhere. I was raped there. So it just brought back so many memories. So when I went to college, I was so happy and relieved to be there, and met all these people I didn't know, some people from primary school. And I did speak to my close friends about being abused. So, but I never went into detail ever. I just said I was raped, and that was it. And this was probably to only two or three friends. And then the first time, so it was never a discussion. Just, you say that one line, and then they hug you and feel really bad, and then it's never talked about again. So it was always inside me. The pain was always there. But I have to say, the first time I actually spoke about it was when I was 13, 12, I think, when I was 12 years old. And uh, uh, I always felt guilty. I always blamed myself, which is something which most victims of child abuse feel. You feel like it's your fault. It's your fault that you were abused. It's your fault for not speaking up early. It's your fault for that they abused you. So I always felt guilty. I felt like it was my fault, and so I went to a Catholic priest. I'm Catholic. I went to a priest in confession to confess my sins. Finally, so I went to this Reverend Father, Father Tata Humphrey. Amazing. He changed my life because I went in for, obviously a 5 minute confession, and it lasted 1 hour, because that was the first time I'd actually spoken out loud in more than one sentence, saying that this houseboy, he raped me for nearly 4 years, and I'm so sorry. And I was crying and shivering and shaking in there. And he finally brought me out, sat with me for an hour, spoke to me. And the words he kept on repeating to me were, "It is not your fault. It is not your fault." And those words just, until today, those words, they make me feel so emotional, because that was the first person I'd really told, and the first person who said those words to me, which I really needed to hear, because I don't know if he had received any training to deal with that type of issue before, but it was the best thing that he could have told me at that time. And I always tell people the same thing. If somebody comes to you, especially in confidence, to confide in you that they have been raped, they've been abused, your sister, your wife, whoever she is, just believe her and tell her it was not her fault. If those words cannot come out, just stay there and listen to them. It means a lot. It makes a whole difference to them, because they already feel, trust me, they believe that it's their fault, no matter what the situation is. And for anyone who is abused, who is raped, it's never your fault. It's never your fault. So if you tell them that it is not your fault, I believe you, it would make a huge difference in the way that person in their life, honestly. So that was the first time I spoke about it to that man, and he encouraged me to speak to my family about it, which I did not do, because in life, sometimes it's easier to tell
A stranger.
strangers about things than your own family. So I never told my family until many years later, when I was in my mid 20s. Then I told my oldest brother, and he was shocked, and he told my parents, and then gradually everyone started finding out. So yeah.
People, I can say this again, read these books, get them. The reason I'm saying it, because my next question now, I don't want to tell everybody what's in the book, because they will not go and get it anymore. But when I think about our society in Cameroon, what is your recommendation for parents? What do you want from your experience and from everything you have learned so far? Because obviously you went and dig deeper, and being a survivor of child abuse, or even sexual abuse, because even us adult women sometimes can go through stuff. And I'm talking like somebody who watches TV, those SVU, Law and Order.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of adults going through a lot of things, and they still feel ashamed, like
Yes.
adult, but you still can't speak up for
Mm-hmm.
some reason. So how can we blame a child not to be able to speak when even adults sometimes don't speak up? So
Mm-hmm.
what you are saying, you said something about, if somebody comes to you for help or confide in you, do this. But what do you want to tell those who are actually victim and feeling like they can't do anything about it?
So for people who are victims, so I have to say, I have to point out that
In our context in Cameroon, because the mentality, the culture could
Mhm.
actually be your enemy, rather.
Yes.
And I think that also plays a role in the silence. To be honest,
Mhm. Mhm.
like
So
saying,
I would say that obviously I'm putting the context as you said in within Cameroonian context. So the thing to do, and everybody doesn't write out their feelings and their emotions, but what you need to do is if you can speak it out, it helps. So I have to point out, I have to mention that I was opportuned to get therapy for this. So I went to therapy and it really, really helped me. So because I am aware that not everyone can afford therapy and not everyone it has access to therapy, or
because
not everyone wants to go to therapy, right?
yeah,
Yes. So I wrote my book in such a way as to describe my actual therapy sessions. And I wrote out explicitly the lessons, or verbatim in many cases, word for word, what my therapist was telling me. So, and I wrote these in my book, in this one, in Cactus in a Calabash. I wrote them because I know that there are many people who will not have access to a therapy. So here I am giving you my own therapy sessions so that hopefully you could benefit in some way from them.
and get the information.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are many things in my book, but I'll just pick on a few. So the one thing which might sound really, really bizarre is that helped me in my healing was the fact that, like I said, my abuse took place in our household. I left our household and went to boarding school for the following or for the next 7 8 years, and I always came back to that house. It was traumatizing, but it became less traumatizing. So the therapeutic explanation for that is excessive exposure to of yourself. So if you expose yourself to whatever your trigger is, that trigger lessens with time. My trigger was the household. I had to even go back and sleep in that same room, in my same bedroom, in the same bed in which I was raped. And by doing that repeatedly over and over and over again, the sensitivity, it died down. It just disappeared. That was not it was not a trigger spot for me anymore. So I am able.
Courage. Find the courage to
Exactly.
face the
Exactly.
fear.
It's the same thing as if someone is walking, if a woman is walking in an alleyway, for instance, and then she gets jumped on by some guy and he rapes her, she will never ever want to walk through that alleyway again. If she even happens to find herself in that alleyway, she might start shivering, panicking, get an anxiety attack, and all that. So psychologically, one way in which to heal yourself of that is by actually going there over and over and over again to that alleyway, and you will at some point just get rid of it. So that's one thing I would say. Face that fear. Face whatever the fear is, face it. It might be facing the person, it might be whatever it is. You need to face it. And it's really, really hard, but you need to face it. Another thing is, writing down your feelings as I did and continue to do, because in essence, you're getting the emotions out. So if you're not writing down your feelings, you could also just talk about them. So talking about what happened, it's tricky because not everyone wants to talk at every point, and also you have to have somebody who is supportive to you to talk to. So in my case, talking, I think I was probably 20, maybe 24 or 20, yes, about 25 when I told I told a relative about this. I just, mentioned it as well in passing, a male relative, and they said, "Oh, there's no way you could have felt sad when you were being raped. There's no girl who can tell me that even as a child, if they rape you, then for nearly 4 years, who does that? Then you tell me you didn't start enjoying it at some point. That really hurts, It really hurt. But the thing is, this relative was just saying what many people think.
Mhm.
And so, despite the fact that those comments hurt, and I was trying to convince him that no, I didn't. No, I didn't. It was traumatic and it's ruined my life. But he was just laughing. But I've learned from that this is actually how some people feel about when a woman is abused. They think, oh yeah, she was enjoying it. Who will?
A lot of shaming. I feel like there's a lot of shaming involved in that in our
Yes.
society. And I feel it's not just even in our society. It seems to be around the action. You know, you're a victim, but instead of people to show compassion, there's still a way where people will find name shaming. You know, I'll
Yes.
take an example. There's this singer, I mean, Daphne, I believe.
Oh, what is
She,
saying?
I just saw her one
Cameroonian.
Instagram, yes. She
Yes, I
came out
follow her.
with a very popular song, Jusqu'à la gare, something like that.
Mm,
And she just came out, I think, was it last year or something? Very, a beautiful girl, singing nice. We've been dancing to her tune, looking at her dressing up. You don't think something like that will happen to her, you know? She
mm,
looked good.
mm,
She sings, she's a celebrity now. I mean, duh.
mm,
And then, bam, one day, she shaved her entire hair. She had like a Britney Spears moment.
mhm.
And here she goes telling us about how she's a rape victim, da 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 da. Da. People were shocked.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's because we were in these 20s, this 20th century or something, but
Mm,
she got some support and some compassion from some. But
mhm,
you also have the other side where
mhm.
people are trying to kind of tear it down. Like, yeah, right. You're just looking for more publicity stunt. The
Right.
music is not working. You know,
Right.
I'm still struggling to understand why would people think that somebody will bring such story to themselves
Mm,
for any reason.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
also want you to tell, please help us in terms of parenthood. What should we be paying attention to, especially in Cameroon? With some parents, I mean, I'm not trying to judge anybody or anything, but it is the way it is. In
Mhm,
some household, you'll find a real connection between parents and children. They are together and they're trying to keep the communication on. In
mhm,
other household, and I feel like being francophone and anglophone on being on both sides, I realize that francophone tend to be a little bit more outspoken
mhm,
in their house, at least most houses. And then most houses in the
generally.
anglophone side, there's this respect to another level, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah. So
We
I agree with that.
on those little things because clearly the wolf is never too far. It seems to
Mm,
be always somebody that is nearby. It could be an uncle, it could be, and I mean uncle by blood, not just house boy. You
mm,
know, so what should we be paying attention to when we have little children? We have children in general, because I
mhm.
don't know if there's an age for it. I'm confused.
Yeah, I just think that as you said, there's some families in which the parents are completely it's the strictness level is just on another level basically. So they traumatize the kids so much to such an extent that the children have no voice. They're completely voiceless. They cannot voice their opinions about anything. In such families, there might even be instances where the family sits together with the parents and children and say, let's have a family meeting. But the children are well aware that during these family meetings, it doesn't mean you should open your mouth and voice out anything. It's just for you to listen. So there are many families like that. And what I would say is that from my own personal experience, these things do not work. It's very authoritarian. It's very suppressive. It suppresses the children into muteness. The children, you are not aware of how they feel. You're not aware of who their friends are. You're not aware of what their friends and themselves talk about. You don't know what they and the people in the household who are around them all the time, what they talk about. You have no idea. You don't even really know the child. So the first thing I would say is let there be an open line of communication between parents and children. We need to change that because that's when that line of communication is not open, it's a problem. Another major thing is beating kids. It's physical abuse, no matter how you want to look at it, no matter how you want to describe it, it is physical abuse, hurting the child because I don't know, is there no other way of disciplining a child? So when you physically abuse a child, And let's say you beat the child at home and you allow or even instruct other people, including the child's teachers, to beat the child as well. It is perceived to in the child's eyes. The child looks at it as acceptable. It's normal.
Mm.
So do you, and that creates a distance between you and the child, the parent and the child. So
I,
then, how do
you.
you?
I don't want to interrupt you, but on this beating, you know how we in Africa and back home there, they say, there's nothing a good beating will not solve. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I got beaten. I turned out all right. My mom, I'm a mom now, so I'm not going to call her and be like, you beat me for this. So I just want us to see, because I feel like we'll have a lot of backlash because we're not embracing another culture, right? What you are saying is, you're not saying not to beat, but there's a beating and there's a beating, right? Or you're
Yeah.
saying completely not to beat,
Mm-hmm. So I'm saying
or
from
not
my own personal experience,
strangers maybe to get to beat.
I know I am saying from my own personal experience,
Mhm.
there are ways in which to discipline kids without beating them at all.
Yeah,
I am a mother too, and I have children.
I
It
agree.
is possible. It is possible. But the thing is, we do what we everyone does what they know. And if all you know is being beaten, then you will beat. You will not try anything else.
True.
So I am a parent as well, and I can tell you that there are other ways of disciplining children. There are other ways, and when you beat the kids, you're abusing the child. That abuse has so many ripple effects. It can. In my case, it had the worst case ever, the worst ripple effect ever, which was it led to me being sexually abused because the physical abuse, the beating, it served as a stepping stone to the sexual abuse. So how then would I go back to these same parents to say, hey, I am being raped by this person, whereas you have granted permission, because in my case my parents granted permission to this guy openly in public to him and in my presence to say if they don't do their homework, beat them. And that's the worst thing you can ever do to a child, to give, especially as you said, especially giving someone else permission to beat you, to abuse your child in that way, because then they've opened the gates of hell. They feel like everything else is permissible. They can do anything else that they want to. And that's what happened in my case. So I would say, in response to your question as to what we should be doing in order to prevent, or they should look out for,
Mhm.
just keep open lines of communication with your kids from the get-go. It's never too late. Even if now the child is a teenager, try to be there for your kids. Listen to them. Try to get to know what they're up to. Try to get to know them. If they come to you with something as outrageous as, this uncle or this auntie has touched me here or inappropriately, believe them. Believe them. Yes, kids make up stuff, but show them that you believe them, even if you don't, and then go and investigate, or keep your eyes open and keep your ears open. Don't openly and blatantly let the child know that you are lying, that they are lying. You know they are lying. That's the worst thing you can do, because then the child feels alone, like there's no one else to help them. So the abuse will continue. And if the abuse has not even started, if it is in the grooming stage, it will now progress into abuse, actual rape. So the main things, I think, is just paying attention to the child, not neglecting the child. Neglecting the child, it entails making sure that the child has their basic needs, making sure that they are aware that they can come to you for support, for emotional support. Another main thing is to teach kids about their bodies from a very young age. Teach them about their bodies. It's obviously kids. The age ranges from 0 to until they're 18 or 17. So at different stages, there are different specific things that you should make sure that they know. So from birth, from when the child can begin to understand, you should teach them that these parts are private parts, and private parts, it means this. So tell them what private means. Private means nobody should see it. Nobody should touch it. Nobody should take pictures of it, especially in this day and age where every phone is a camera, has a camera. Nobody should get you to touch their own. Nobody should get you to touch somebody else's own, not even a child. and so on and so forth. So it's important to let kids know from as soon as they can understand that this is private, and so it should remain private. And as they get older, so from the age of 1, you should teach kids that, and it's very basic information. And then as they get older, you tell them more and more information. From the age of 5, 4 or 5, here they're in school. In other countries, they're not in school at the age of 4 or 5, but from that age you begin to you reiterate it, you re-emphasize it, because children forget if you don't keep saying things over and over. And you don't just say it out of the blue. You say it at specific times, like during bath times. You can tell them, because they are naked, and you can see at that time, oh, yeah, by the way, don't let anybody do this, don't let anybody do that, and you let it go. And then you say it again, maybe when they're at a pool, getting changed to go into a swimming pool, or when they're getting change at home. So those types of times, such that it doesn't come just out of nowhere. And so teach kids about their bodies. And when they're a little bit older, when they're getting into puberty ages, then you start telling them about puberty, just also in a very casual way. Try to make it as casual as possible, as in, tell them about the changing bodies. That's it. The body is going to change. In girls, it changes in this way, and in boys, it changes in this way. And just by telling them that, it enables the conversation to be easier as they're getting older. So it's those types of things. When you have an open line of conversation with your children, it's easier for them to see that they can come to you. They will just keep coming to you as time goes on, as they get older. And these little things, I mean, they might seem little, but they're very valuable, because these things will help a child. It will help to prevent a child from getting sexually abused.
I hear you. Right. I think we still have a long way to go, because, I mean, not to be judging the best way or not the best way. I think everybody should at least try to keep that window, open, to allow the child to be able to come towards them,
Mm.
towards to be that relationship somehow.
Yeah.
Whatever your parental skills or scheme is, you need to make sure you keep it, because I feel like it's key to
Mhm.
spot if something is wrong with your child. Now, when you look at Cameroon, I wonder, I saw you being a host to several platforms talking about abuse for women, abuse for children. You've spoken a lot with some Nigerian organizations. Don't we have enough of that back home? Don't we have organization that speaks of this? Or how come you've been working more and they have been opening their doors to you,
Mhm.
and not the other way, our own way?
That's
How come?
that's a very good point. And to be honest, I've done only one interview with a on a Cameroonian platform, and more with Nigerians. So I wouldn't be able to compare Nigeria and Cameroon to say which one has maybe more platforms, but I believe that Nigerians there are more of them who are doing more of these, or who are creating more of these platforms that have contacted me. They're becoming more vocal, even more vocal, I would say, on social media than I see Cameroonians being on social media. So in real life, it might be different. I have no idea. In real life, it might be exactly the same amount of exposure that is coming up. I have no idea. But as far as social media is concerned, I see, my experience is that there's more openness and more discussion going on in Nigerian social media basically. And so they've reached out to me. There's no one who has reached out to me who I have declined. So yeah, and I've had, like I said, I've had just one from a Cameroonian platform, which is not great. I have set up an organization called KEBS, which the premise of that organization is basically the work that I do now.
Mm.
So to provide support to people who have gone through domestic abuse. However, my own actual organization is only for children who have gone through sexual abuse, not for everyone who has gone through domestic abuse.
Mm.
Um, at the moment, it's not feasible to do it in Cameroon because there's a lot of civil unrest going on. I've tried to do a few things. I've worked on a couple of projects in Southwest where there's even more unrest than anywhere else in the country. It was very challenging to say the least, but we were able to help to provide some support to some young girls who were sexually abused. We're able to get them moved to other places and housed with specific families. So that was good, but it was extremely challenging to do. And it's mainly because of the civil unrest, the Francophone Anglophone crisis that's going on, that's still been going on now after several years. So yeah, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that a lot more can be done. There's a lot of there's I think that there's still a lot of stigma and there's still a lot of silence, with this topic in our community. I can only speak from my own experience. I feel like there's a lot of stigma, a lot of silence. It's not open discussion. Even when I came out with my own book or with my books, I felt like people who I knew were a little bit wary, like what should I say, you know and these are people who are our age, or of our age, and they were a little like hesitant. Oh, I don't want. I think I respect that because I feel like maybe they were being sensitive and they didn't want to open up old ones in reaching out to me. So I understand that. But I feel like we need a change. We need to be more openly discussing these things because in not talking about them, that it's perpetuating the problem. It's not going away. We have to speak about these things, as uncomfortable as it is. Speak out, support people who are going through it. Don't judge them until you find reason to judge. Don't judge. Don't jump to conclusions. Especially women. I feel like women need to be the ones uplifting other women. If you hear of a woman who has gone through any kind of domestic abuse, sexually abused, or whichever form of abuse, immediately support them. Don't immediately think, I wonder what their story is. Why did she go to this person's house? Why did she wear a mini skirt? Why did she go home with him? All those questions, they increase the blame, the victim blaming on the victim. So we need to support each other more.
We are condemning.
Exactly. And when there's no reason to. So when this keeps happening, other people who are being unfortunately raped, they don't want to come out and say anything because they expect that they will be treated in the same way. So we need to support each other. And I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful because my plan is to continue with what I'm doing and just to keep raising this awareness based on my work and my own personal experience and my own story and all the research that I've done just to keep raising awareness and speaking to people. I hope that it will be easier to do it as time goes on. It'll be easier to do it with more Cameroonian organizations. I was on a platform, I think last year, this on a panel discussion discussing sexual abuse in minors, in children, and there was a solicitor, a lawyer on the panel as well, and I learned a lot from her because I didn't realize that there was even, there's a phone number to call if you're raped in Cameroon. People do not know this. So the more open we can become, about this issue, about this topic, then the easier it will be to keep talking about it. But when everyone is being silent and not talking about it because it's shameful or it's embarrassing to talk about, then the problem gets bigger. It remains there. So.
Let me ask you this before we close. We are nearing the end. With your organization, I feel like you need more support. I feel like you need more support and you need more partners. You need more people on board. Why am I saying this? It's because just hearing you talk about the girl that you managed to move in the Southwest region, I mean, yes, there's a lot of unrest at the moment, but if you take even our own capital, like Yaoundé or the other one, Douala, things seems to be normal, but it's not as easy. People pay their way out. As in, somebody cannot even go to the police with their own claim. I'm abused. Okay, so what? My husband beat me. C'est votre problème, mariage. Eh,
Mhm.
it's still a lot of stigma, and it's not just about our culture. Even our legal system has issues. Though it's so controversial, basically,
It
because
is.
the same legal system will condemn the gay, transgender, and throw them in jail. Yet that same system could give a pass to
Mhm.
a child abuser just because he can just pay them off, and
Exactly.
sometimes not even a big check. Sometimes, and you don't even have, I don't even know, do we even have free legal representation? I mean, it's all that I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
if somebody wants to contact you, let me just ask you this. If somebody in Cameroon right now is listening to you, whether an adult or a child, because these days they have access to internet too, eh,
Mhm.
they have this thing and they want somebody to confide in. Do you have like a line
I
or an email or something that you can just
Yes.
come in
So
contact?
the easiest, quickest way is to just search for me on all social media platforms, Manyi Anabor, and you will find me and just hit me up because I am on all social media platforms. Instagram is I'm most active on Instagram. So if you send me a DM, a direct message, to confide in me, to get advice from me about anything, or where to go or what to do in whatever instance, hit me up, Manyi Anabo, on Instagram or on Facebook or on Twitter. I will respond within an hour. I'm very active on those platforms. I do have phone numbers, but at the moment I'm not giving them out for the Cameroonian one because of the access issue in the southwest.
Mm.
For those who are in Cameroon as well, I have I do projects in line with Educam, so EDUCAM. They are on the ground there, so and I am over here, so I work in collaboration with them. They do a lot of work with in schools, in secondary schools, and raising awareness about child abuse and abuse in general, and just teaching boys how to maintain healthy relationships, what to do, what not to do. So we work together. I give them lots of material to cover, and yeah, we do work together. So you can also contact them. It's Educam. They're also on social media. So at the moment, those are the ways in which you can reach me, and you can reach me at any time. Just send me a message for any support, any guidance, any advice. I'm always there.
And even because you never know, you might have some doctors. The Cameroonian community is so big.
Yes,
We have almost
I
every
have everything.
represented. You never know. You might have doctors. You might even have a benefactor, somebody that decides to donate. To
Hmm.
fund this, to give you the means to actually
Yeah,
go. You know.
yeah.
So would you be willing to hear from them? Can they also
Yes,
give
of
you a
course.
message, and you guys will figure out?
Of course, because that is always needed. We recently we raised funds, like I said, we raised funds with in partnership with Educam. We raised funds and we got these girls moved and rehoused. We put them in foster families, and because during this whole issue for the past 4 or 5 years of the Francophone Anglophone issue in Cameroon, many children were displaced, and some families took them in, and then the families started raping the children.
Mm,
So it's just it's mind blowing. It's ridiculous. So some kids have been out of school, as we all know. They've been out of school for 4 years. So we were able to raise funds. It was not easy, but we were able to raise funds to rehouse some of these kids, to get them into teaching spaces. So they are not actually in school, but we were able to arrange for teachers to teach them,
mm,
and we were able to get the space available in which to teach them. They're getting psychotherapy, which is a form of counseling after you've been abused or neglected. So they're getting that kind of ongoing support, which is, there's so many other kids who we became aware of who need that. But because there's limited amount of funds, we had to choose the most needy 25 kids
Mm.
and support them. It broke my heart because we're not able to do the same for the others, but we had to choose and then leave the others.
You can do with what you have, I mean, you're trying. You may want to save the whole world. Like right now, I want COVID to leave us alone. But hey, what can I do? I can only wear my mask and keep social distance, right?
I,
And
I
wash
know.
my hands.
Yeah,
So thank you so much, Manyi. This whole story always leave a sour taste in my mouth. I'm sorry. It's just
I know. I know.
there's
I
still
know.
so much to do. And when I think about Cameroon, I can't even believe, like, I can't start to imagine how many children are going through this, how many even women are going through abuse.
Mhm.
Because I don't even know if you have a social service.
Yeah,
Like I lived in Cameroon
there is.
for almost 20 years. I heard
Mhm.
of it. People contribute to things, but where is it? You know?
Mhm. It's non-existent. That's the thing. It's all quiet. It's hush hush. Nobody. If you go through these issues, you're not even aware of what is out there. You're not aware, which is so annoying.
But you'll be shocked that in the structure and organization in our government and all that, those things exist. As in, they've mapped them out. We have a social service, we have this. But in the application of it now on the ground, they vanished.
Nothing. Yeah, and there's funding. There's funding for these things. There's budgets and funding every single year, but it's to the public. It's non-existent.
Yeah. And then
Mm.
but one thing makes me happy though. It's the fact that I feel like Cameroonians are growing in the care of the mind. They're starting to open their spirit a little bit more, talking about their, you know,
Mental health.
because I don't know if it's because of the young generation, bringing things. A lot of kids went abroad, came back with issues. Some were doing drugs, others were just traumatized, etc., etc. And then
Mhm.
because now there are so many people also going to study psychology, becoming psychiatrists, and coming back home to settle because they know that we need that there. We always think
Mhm.
about the looks. I'm looking like this. Everybody think, oh, she's fine. She's fine. Everything is good. That's the same thing that I feel like happened to Daphne.
Mm.
I have to admit, I was one of those shocked, like, oh my, okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
You can't see
Yeah.
how you look at somebody. When I look at you right now, who can tell all this baggage that you carried for God
Oh.
knows how long? Where
Yeah.
can it go?
Yeah.
So
It's horrible. It's horrible, and I feel like obviously everybody's story is different. Everybody's situation is different. I am simply using what I went through to pass on that knowledge. That's all I'm trying to do. I actually wouldn't change it. What happened to me? I wouldn't change it because I'm happy that I went through all this and I've come out on the other side and I'm okay. And I'm happy, especially that I went through it for that such a long period of time, which allowed me to basically study how this guy worked, how he did it, and to now realize that there's a clear pattern with all child sexual abusers. It's a pattern. They all act in the same way because all they're trying to do is to cover their tracks. So I'm lucky to have gone through that and have documented it without even realizing I was documenting it, and to now even have the ability to write about it. And then on top of that, to be able to go to therapy and document my therapy sessions and put it out for people to learn from, just in order to advance, to add something to our humanity, to prevent this from happening, because it is so devastatingly traumatic what happens to a child, what happens to a person's life
mm,
when they're abused. It's horrible. It's horrible.
somebody asked me the other day about your book. Is it available in Cameroon? Can somebody?
It's not available in Cameroon. It's only available on Amazon at the moment
Mm.
because that was just the easiest way to do it. So for now it's not available in Cameroon. I'm still working on trying to find a way to make it more easily available there, because yeah, we really need it. I am trying really hard to get word out into as many spaces as possible, because I feel like there's a lot. I have a lot to say. I've said a lot already, but with these things, you have to keep saying them and keep trying to apply them in different workspaces and different situations and different families, you
I'm
know.
actually buying some more books right now, and I'm sending them back home because somebody asked me for it in Cameroon, and I was like, I don't think it's available. So I'm
Um,
gonna get some back, some shipped over. And well, if you know anybody that could help to get the book published and available in Cameroon, you'll see the email down here. You can contact Manyi Anabor as well on any of her platform. She will be glad and she will definitely get back to you. I think it's a book worth being available in
mm,
Cameroon
yeah, I agree.
because this is free therapy. She
Hmm.
already pays the fees for it
Hmm.
and she's sharing it.
Hmm.
Cactus in a Calabash.
Yes,
Where did you get
yes.
that title before I let you
Do
go?
you know I am the cactus. A cactus is said to be the most resilient plant because it can grow in the desert
Yeah.
under such harsh desert conditions. So it can grow there and survive there. So I refer to myself as the cactus. That's on one hand. So a calabash is African little bowls.
Round.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That sometimes they are in the form of a gourd,
Mhm.
right? And as far as I know, a calabash was used by my grandfather to pour palm wine into it to store it. So but there's some people who take seeds and store there just so that when it's planting season, then you remove the seeds and you plant them. So I refer to myself as a cactus inside a calabash because when as a cactus seed in a calabash, there's no sunlight, no rain, no nothing, no environmental factors can reach you in order to help you grow, like palm wine would help you. But I still survived. So that's why I refer to myself as a cactus stored in a calabash,
Hmm,
and I survived it.
I see.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Manny. We appreciate that, and we are glad you are doing okay, and we just even more glad that you are taking these steps to help others because I know we need that help.
Mhm.
I know. I mean, I've learned so many stories. I've had people confiding in me too about things, and I know that we need that help. We need to
Yeah.
be able to identify that wolf. I'm
Mm.
calling it the wolf. We need to be able to see who the wolf around us is and keep our children safe. That being
Yeah.
said, I'm letting you go. Have a nice day, and we'll talk.
Thank you.
Thank
And thank you for having me.
you. No problem. Talk to
Okay.
you soon. Bye.